PepsiCo pulled 13% of its 2024 net revenue from Latin America. But that same region delivered 15% of its core division operating profit. That spread isn't a branding anecdote, it's a system revealing itself. Because in Latin America, the snack aisle doesn't reward whoever owns the biggest portfolio. It rewards whoever earns identity permission and can keep it when the rules tighten. Industry estimates put the region's total snacks market around $46.4 billion in 2024, with low single-digit growth projected through the end of the decade. Large enough to matter, stable enough to defend. A multinational can replicate your flavor profile faster than it can replicate belonging. You can match heat. You can match crunch. You can even match shelf presence, if you're willing to pay for it. What doesn't copy cleanly is the moment a consumer decides, without thinking, that one is mine. Walk into a small neighborhood store mid-afternoon. The cooler hums. A worker on break has 2 minutes, a few coins, and a habit. They don't read the panel. They reach for a signal. Something familiar, something local, something that feels like home. That's the human anchor most boardrooms miss. Here, snack loyalty often looks less like preference and more like recognition. Now put the filings on the table. In 2024, PepsiCo reported $91.854 billion in net revenue and $14.698 billion in core operating profit. Latin America represented 13% of net revenue, yet 15% of core division operating profit. That's not a rounding error. When a region over-delivers on profit mix, it stops being growth. It becomes a margin engine, and margin engines get protected. The hidden mechanism isn't a slogan, it's SKU-level economics under constraint. When pressure rises, consumers don't stop snacking. They re-optimize. Smaller packs, fewer grams, the same ritual. So the company that wins isn't the one shouting the loudest. It's the one with the cleanest price ladder, pack sizes and formats that preserve the feeling of affordability while quietly protecting margin per gram. A category manager learns this without a headline. In a weekly meeting, they stare at a simple sheet. Units steady, but mix drifting down. Family bags soften. Singles hold. The consumer didn't leave. They just moved to the only price point that still feels safe. That's a boardroom recalculation disguised as a shopper choice. This is where the identity fight becomes strategy. Scale incumbents want repeatability. Standardized plants, standardized procurement, standardized execution. That's how you defend margins across currencies and countries. Identity-native challengers play a different game. Fewer geographies, cleaner cultural codes, a product that feels like it could not have been invented in a distant headquarters. And then there's the hybrid, the portfolio that uses distribution like an artery system, but lets brands retain their local voice. Because corporate polish is sometimes the fastest way to lose. The fight isn't only shelf space, it's whether you can scale without sterilizing the meaning. Then the rules started squeezing the front panel. Mexico's NOM 051 front of pack system rolled out in phases. Phase 1 ran from October 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2023. Phase 2 began October 1st, 2023 and runs through September 30th, 2025, tightening evaluation criteria. Phase 3 begins October 1st, 2025. First, those dates matter because they compress degrees of freedom. Over time, the package becomes less of a billboard and more of a compliance surface. Chile followed a similar tightening logic, implemented in phases starting in 2016, with stricter thresholds in later phases. Different market, same structural pressure. And once a warning label shows up, the brand loses narrative real estate. Claims compress. Characters get riskier. The promise has to travel through fewer cues, Fewer words, fewer legal inches of space. So the contest moves. Not just creative, operational. Reformulation becomes a production problem. You don't just change a recipe, you adjust suppliers, validate shelf life, stabilize texture, recalibrate seasoning, and make sure the product still wins in the first bite. A plant team feels it first, not as strategy, as a last-minute spec change that has to run cleanly next week without breaking yield, as a line lead listening for a texture that's slightly off, as procurement asking whether the new input behaves the same at scale. Regulation doesn't just pressure marketing, it pressures throughput. The economics show up again in another set of filings. In 2023, Mondelez reported Latin America net revenues of $5.006 billion and segment operating income of $529 million, roughly a 10.6% segment margin. Net revenues in the segment rose 37.9% year-over-year, and segment operating income increased 36.3%. Growth like that, inside a region also absorbing stricter labeling, tells you demand isn't fragile. The battle is about who captures it efficiently. And in snacks, efficiency isn't abstract. It's distribution density, manufacturing utilization, pack architecture, and the ability to defend velocity without turning the category into a discount spiral. Latin America's snack wars expose something bigger about food businesses. Consumers don't just buy taste. They buy a small, repeatable feeling, one that survives budget pressure. Identity permission protects that feeling. But the moment you see it as a profit lever, you also see the risk. Because permission erodes quickly when packaging rules tighten, when reformulations dull the bite, or when a brand tries to scale by sanding off the cultural edges that made it win. So the question isn't whether big portfolios can win share. The question is whether they can keep earning belonging while operating at industrial scale, especially as front-of-pack systems reduce how much identity can be printed on the product. And if belonging becomes harder to signal on the package, where does the advantage move next? Because in this region, the most valuable ingredient isn't corn, oil, or seasoning, it's recognition. And recognition is the one input you cannot manufacture on demand.